Welcome, everybody. It's a couple minutes after, so we're going to get started. We've got a pretty full webinar, and I don't want to miss having the time that we need to cover everything. So thank you so much for being here today. My name is Shelly Mann. I'm the VP of Marketing for Zia Consulting. And in today's webinar, Jeremy White from Zia Consulting, Anna Murray, and Jim McGuire from Rocket Software will share how putting the right tools in place will help you unlock the full potential of your SAP environment, bridge daunting skills gaps, and streamline SAP processes alongside your IT workflows and maximize optimization. Before we get started, I just want to cover a few housekeeping things. Make sure you're on mute. And if you have any questions along the way, please put them in the chat function and we'll make sure we get to those at the end of the webinar. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our presenters. Anna?
Thank you. Jeremy, I think you wanted to get us going.
Yeah, actually, I'll take a stab at just kind of walking us through the framework of the agenda, and then a little bit about, well, we'll kind of just off the top cover company introductions as well between Zia and Rocket. So we'll be sure to keep that pretty limited. I know everybody's pretty excited about getting to the second item here, which is the enterprise automation with SAP. So we're really excited to be joined with Anna Murray and Jim McGuire today, who will walk us through some of the value benefits there and why that's important to organizations. And then we'll kind of move straight into some of the success stories and how customers have leveraged this kind of technology and really more solutionized it, right, and put it in and operationalized it in order to benefit their various customers. And then we'll go through a series of questions and conversations. As Shelly said, if you can throw those into the chat box, and we'll be sure to get to those right at the end of the presentation. So yeah, I think I'll just take a quick look at the Zia overview and give you just a little bit of a brief history. So we're a company that's been around for about 20 years, just over 20 years, celebrated our 20th. I think that was last year. So really excited to be here with Zia Consulting. Zia has a more than 20-year history with enterprise content management and also automation. So what that means is taking processes and organizations, helping to automate those processes, and also helping to manage those processes, data, and the content that is related to those. And that really fits well with my background. So just a little bit more about me. I've been in the industry as well for just over 25 years. And my entire career, I've focused on enterprise content management, as well as SAP data management and archiving procedures. So this presentation today is really going to be kind of speaking to my heart and hopefully to yours out there, where you've got, various technology suites. I know today we're going to focus a little bit more on SAP, but various technology suites where you could benefit from automating procedures and processes and further operationalizing those types of processes. The other thing is we have a really rich and deep partnership with Rocket. We've been partners, I think, for 7 or 8 years now, and we have a lot of alignment. Rocket has a great stack of technologies and products that help enable customers to streamline processes, streamline enterprise content management, and just a whole bunch of several product SKUs. So again, today we're going to pretty much stay focused on Enterprise Orchestrator and what that means, but there's a lot to go over. Anna and Jim will try to kind of just hit the tip of the iceberg on some of those things as well. But we're just know that a lot to talk about, and we're happy to have offline conversations with you as well. And we'll have our email at the end of the slides or at the end of the presentation as well. So we are certainly happy to book follow-up meetings. And I think with that, Anna, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and I'll be on standby and happy to jump in whenever you'd like me.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just to give you all a flavor of my background, I started in automation back at Y2K, actually. I was a Windows 95 baby, and I got involved with a company who didn't know anything about Windows, and we were trying to implement automation at the time. And then I ended up working for a company that did automation. And then in 2019, I joined Rocket Software. And so my passion has been in automating and orchestrating processes and getting rid of the mundane tasks so that our human beings could be more useful and more powerful, and be able to make the most value of the people we have working for our companies. So it's really a passion of mine. Then a little bit about Rocket, on top of what Jeremy said from the Zia perspective, we do have a global customer base, and a good 2/3 of our staff is software engineers. We build product to help our customers modernize in place and not disrupt their entire world while they do that, right? And specifically, we approach our customers with our values, which are empathy, humanity, love, and trust. I love our values because, to me, IT and software businesses have really gotten distracted by the zeros and the ones and the technology and the cool gadgets, and they forget that at the end of the day, the whole reason these things exist is to help us do our jobs better, right? It's to help us succeed. And so if we approach you with empathy, humanity, love, and trust, we can build a good partnership. We really do approach our customers with a partnership perspective so that we can help you, meet you where you are and help you get where you're going. So just to give you a high level overview of where the things that we cover, right? You had the challenges in your environment and you know what they are. I'm not going to go into them. In fact, this whole thing is a bit of an eye chart, but I wanted it in the presentation so you could have it for later to look at. And specifically, we focus on 3 different solution areas: hybrid cloud, security and compliance, and then optimizing skills and efficiency. And because today we want to focus on skills and efficiency, and we talked about bridging the skills gap in the summary for you, we're going to focus in on automation. And as we focus in on that space, there are specific challenges that happen in these spaces, right? So you have customers that are demanding that you do more for them, right? Always. They always want more for less, right? So there's more applications and more features. There's increasing workloads. Everybody's hybrid cloud in one level or another, right? Or maybe they're mostly cloud, maybe you're mostly on-prem with a little cloud, but that is something that's all over the place. You also have competition. You've got to make sure that you're moving faster and faster so that you get to market and that your products and services win. And then we have workforce constraints. If you happen to be a site that still has IBM Z or IBM I, you're really feeling it, right? We've got a bunch of people who are retiring and playing with their grandkids and no longer working, and the next generation isn't really fully up to speed. So we're dealing with that in that space. But I tell you what, I've heard it in the workload automation space as well. SAP staff, getting SAP people who are trained to do SAP work, it's very hard to find them. And when you do, they're expensive. So we're dealing with those workforce constraints. And then, of course, there's always governance demands, where there's new regulations all the time. So those pressures definitely speak to what my customers deal with. And in response, they are automating. They are looking at their DevOps orchestration because they really have a bunch of little islands of automation and they can't control it all in one place. And they silo their processes. Again, where the mainframe and IBM I are, you often have just the team. Oh, they're the IBM team, and we don't talk to them because we're the cloud team, right? So you have that silo happening, and it's actually breaking processes for the company. So it's not tied from end to end and flowing your business everywhere that it needs to go. And of course, you need to become more agile to do that. So our response to these challenges to help with these situations is a product called Enterprise Orchestrator. And it is a platform, it's a whole solution to help you design, visualize, orchestrate, and then automate your processes from end to end. Now that's a really big statement, and okay, nice claim. Let's talk about realities. What are your imperatives? What are you trying to get done? You need to increase your workload throughput. Maybe you're trying to elevate DevSecOps because you implemented DevOps, but the security built into there isn't so good. So you're trying to elevate the security portion. Maybe you're just trying to reduce complexity so that you can find the root cause of a problem and solve that problem more quickly. All of these problems are things that Enterprise Orchestrator can help you with. And so I like to put logos on the screen to help you connect to what I'm talking about. if you have a DevOps ecosystem, you're probably using tools like Ansible and Jenkins, maybe Terraform, definitely Jira or Azure DevOps, right? We've got all of these tools in the environment, and we need to connect the dots, right? Something's got to create those tickets, especially if something goes wrong. We can automate the creation of the ticket so your developers can pick up the task and get the work done. When they commit the code, we can trigger the Jenkins pipeline build, trigger the file transfer, then tell Ansible to go build infrastructure as code. And through that process, you have this single dashboard in Enterprise Orchestrator where if there's a failure in Jenkins or Ansible, you know about it right away. You know exactly where the problem is and what's slowing down your workflow to get you to joy on the other end to get the value out of what it is you're working on. And so as we move to the right of this graphic, it blows out into several different tools. And the point being that Enterprise Orchestrator will connect the dots across your ecosystem. So whatever you have in that ecosystem that needs automation and orchestration to connect the dots, that's where we're there to help you. And today we want to focus in on SAP. SAP is a specific area, but I'll give you another picture real quick about the other areas that we work. So you can see we work with Oracle and ServiceNow. We also have PeopleSoft customers. So there's integrations that need to happen all over the place with database updates, or maybe we're running testing through Selenium. And all of those things need to come together to make your business flow. And one of the things that my customers do is lots and lots of SAP jobs. So to help me talk more about SAP, I'm going to invite my colleague, Jim McGuire, to join me. Jim, would you come on and introduce yourself and tell folks a little bit about yourself?
Why, certainly. Thank you, Anna. So I'm Jim McGuire, and I'm very pleased to be participating in today's webinar with our highly valued partner, Zia. I have a long history of working with SAP. Initially, I worked in chemical manufacturing for 15 years, first with SAP R2, which replaced an old RAND Corporation mainframe for order processing, and followed by consolidation of 127 different systems into 4 strategic business units in 4 phases, using SAP R3 as the enabling technology. Within a year of go live, I went searching for an SAP archiving solution, primarily out of necessity. One of the things about SAP is the database grows rather rapidly, and you become very aware that nightly backups are taking longer and longer. System performance starts to degrade for end users. So I went searching for an archiving solution, and I became acquainted with Mobius, which is a lesser known but extremely powerful archiving solution for SAP and non-SAP enterprises. I was so impressed, in fact, that within a year, I was working for Mobius Management Systems. Since then, the Mobius solution, like SAP, has modernized with full support for cloud-based deployments, more intuitive user experiences, granular control when it comes to access and the disposition of content throughout its lifecycle. Why don't you take us to the next slide, Anne?
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you for joining me, Jim. I think, the intersection of orchestration and automation and content archival is very clear. Maybe not until you look at it, but the truth is, with SAP, you've got to do the job scheduling. You've got your ABAP programmers and you've got your basis people, and they're creating those jobs and we're scheduling them, and then they're monitoring the jobs, and we're integrating with everything else in your integration or in your enterprise. And at the same time, we're generating a lot of data inside of SAP because we're creating the packing slips and the invoices and all of that stuff that you need
and the
to
payroll report and all that.
Right.
Stuff. Yes.
Right. So there's other areas of value when we talk about what Rocket can bring. So Enterprise Orchestrator is the top 2 things, which really expands really large into the enterprise integration side. And then Jim, let's talk about some of the other items on this slide.
So, I mean, anybody who's worked with SAP knows, you've got to run payroll. If you're paying your employees twice a month, that means you're running payroll twice. And if you have hundreds of thousands, and in some case millions of employees, That's a very large payroll report that you need to generate. And one of the things folks realize pretty quickly with SAP is that those reports, the big payroll reports, inventory reconciliation, how many billing invoices went out today, those are snapshots in time. If time goes by and you try to recreate those documents, those reports, they won't be the same because the underlying master data changes over time. So it's very important for organizations. They find out really quick, I can't keep those reports in a principal. They're hogging up the system. So it's typically the best way to handle those large reports and events that recur repeatedly is to index and archive them. And now you have a record of the information that doesn't have to reside in SAP and is easily accessible. And then other common jobs, the basis team is typically handling our nightly backups, doing data and document archiving. And once they do that data and document archiving, they need to reclaim that space. And to do that, they have to do a database reorg. They also have to do system updates and performance tuning. Typically, the basis team is responsible for making sure that the system is performant and that everything is happening the way it should be. Nightly backups, batch jobs being run at optimal times, and then also kicking off workflow. So things like vendor invoice processing, where I'm scanning batches of invoices and then I need to process them. It's a very common scenario for our customers who need help with data archiving and document archiving to also handle things like vendor invoice processing. I'm doing scanning of batches. I index and archive them. They're stored to Mobius. Mobius is then able to pass the metadata and the link to the actual document into SAP for a three-way matching automatically, straight through processing using transaction mirror 6, or to be worked via SAP Workplace for non-PO based items or PO based items that's mismatched. So the whole idea of scheduling jobs for automation is extremely important in the SAP space as well.
Right. And I think this is where we can really get into the skills gap, right? When you're talking about these basis people, or we've got the ABAP programmers, and how many people does it take to make
I
all this
used to
stuff
keep an
happen?
army of ABAP programmers busy, okay, because there's quite a few out of the box reports that SAP provides, but most businesses have custom requirements, custom needs. They have a particular view they want. So ABAP programmers, at the direction of folks like me, I give them a functional design spec. They program what's needed for that query. And then we go through a lot of back and forth until we get it just the way we want. And then it's got to go through change control. Right now, it's got to go from dev to test, QA before it makes it into production. So it's a big task, right? And keeping it the way you want is also maintaining it and making sure that you have the information you need is part of the challenge.
Right. So Jeremy, if you'd join us for just a minute, I think, you were sharing something with me the other day about some research that's been made about lack of human beings available to do jobs on SAP.
Yeah, it's a pretty fascinating statistic. I can't remember if it was KPMG or Accenture, but I was reading this. It's probably been about 6 months ago. And what they were talking about is because SAP is sunsetting the ECC environment and going sort of end of life, which is a little bit of a questionable term, but what it really, what they're attempting to do is get everybody off of the ECC environment and over to the S/4HANA environment by the end of 2027. And so, yeah, the analyst did an interesting report and showed that even if, and I think they based it on LinkedIn, and so they went and basically found every person who had SAP Basis or ABAP skills and quantified them and said, even if you took every one of those human beings and booked them out at, I think it was 40 hours a week for the length, for the number of months that we have before we're sunsetting SAP, that we would, which is 2027, that we would still miss the deadline by about 2 years. Like there aren't enough humans on the planet with the appropriate skill set to perform all of the activities that need to be done in order to effectively migrate everyone over to 2027. Or by 2027. So I just thought that that was really interesting. And part of the reason, Anna, for that was, folks were talking about who's going to keep the lights on, right? There's a lot of things that need to be done, and these specifically kind of outlined on this slide around just your daily job. And what is one of the ways that you can free up more times the humans, which is, it kind of just comes back to automation and enterprise orchestration, things that we're discussing today.
Right, exactly. So it seems a little bit trite to say, oh, just automate it, right? And that fills the human gap. Well,
Yeah.
no, of course it doesn't. What we're doing with automation, of course, is bringing a tool to the forefront for your company that says, okay, those things that are repetitive and run every single day, and I don't need a human being to do that, we automate it. So that we free up the human beings we do have to focus on their jobs. I think about SAP, ABAP programmers and basis people. They're as precious to us as our developers, right? If we're a company that writes software for selling like Rocket does, right? I protect my development resources as gold, right? I need them focused on their job, or we're not going to deliver the good quality software that we need to deliver. Same thing happens in SAP, right? You need to protect your key resources so that they can grow. Maybe you have an ABAP programmer who's new and they just are starting to learn and they need to be mentored by somebody else. Having them manually do this kind of stuff over and over is a waste of that resource, right? So what we want to
now, you're right. You're right on. And right now, this initiative, the move to high performance analytic appliance, or HANA, is something everyone's going through right now. And the in-memory database is fast, but it's expensive. The data redundancies that were there in ECC 6.0 are much less in HANA, right? So they've eliminated a lot of the data growth you might have found in the old system, but there still is growth. There still is tons of data and documents, and you want to do it as intelligently as possible. You want to have as little in HANA as possible to keep those costs as low as possible without having any negative impact for the end user community. So for me, that's a big part of what everyone in the SAP world is going through now, is the move to HANA, and how best to do that, right? Migrating data documents into the new world order. Where's best to keep them? What kind of end user experiences do we want? And those are important, right? As I move to HANA, I need to be able to do so in a way that's not disruptive. And it's not going to balloon costs for us. So SAP took care of a good chunk of that, right, by coming up with HANA itself, and it's much better database than what was being done with ECC 6.0. But it doesn't solve the fact that you're going to continue to have transactions, you're going to continue to have content that you need to manage through its life cycle.
Yeah, kind of think about just some of the specific benefits around enterprise orchestration and really just the number of activities that a basis administrator or other ABAP developer has to perform within this ecosystem, and has to get it right, because the ERP is what's running the enterprise. So they have to get it right. So, to me, it's a couple of things. One is the ability to free up the resource so that they can, focus on more high value kind of activities. But another one that I think is important is, error reduction, right? By automating a task and thinking through that process of how do you orchestrate an activity in a task, and taking the human out of it sometimes can reduce the number of errors. It can also reduce the number of, the amount of risk associated with it. It's the old, I think, well, I'm in my 40s, so we used to say, if they're hit by a bus. I think the modern term is if you win the lottery, what happens? And so these are kind of important things, which is one, the value of the resource, but also the risk associated with what happens if that resource doesn't exist, right? And
it's about business continuity at that point. Right. Exactly. And when you take the human out of it for the kinds of things that are so repetitive, right? when you think about a human having to do the manual thing, first of all, they have to think, oh, it's time to do this thing and go do it. So you've got this delay, you've got a lag happening too, because we're not as fast as the computer, but we're also way smarter than the computer. So the idea is that we program the computer to do the thing, right? That's every single day at the same time or after a file arrives or whatever triggers it, right? And immediately then trigger the next thing that is supposed to happen in the workflow with no errors, as Jeremy said, because you've already programmed it and tested it and made sure that it's going to be perfect every single time. And so you have this sense of security, right? So your business continuity is there. Yeah. Your business is going to run. If you're going to make a change because you have to change an ABAP program or you need to introduce a new one, then you can test it and you can make sure that it's going to be fine and then make it repeatable forever, right? Until you decide it's time to decommission and move to HANA and do something different. So, it depends on what your business is doing, but in the move from ECC to HANA, it's also important that you continue to automate everything in ECC, right? And as you move over things one thing at a time or in batch, you then automate that in HANA and you're getting both at the same time until you're fully moved over, right? So migrations are different at every company. Some try to go big bang. That's not always the best plan. Some companies say, okay, let's do one application at a time. Let's do one department at a time. Let's,
do one business unit at a time.
One business unit at a time. So we're Enterprise Orchestrator helps you do that because we can automate you in ECC. We can automate you in HANA. It doesn't matter where your business is running your things right now. We can help you keep that automated and stable while you go through all the other chaos that happens just because you're in this transition from ECC to HANA. So yeah. I think this is, yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, no, I was just going to extend on that a bit and say, another thing that I think is really key, and it's just one of the elements where I feel like Enterprise Orchestrator provides a tremendous amount of value is, what you were talking about, which is the automation and getting to the point of perfection. The other benefit is the ability to kick out exceptions, right? Yeah. So we've got a perfect process and that's all working. And one day an exception pops up. With a human intervention, there could be a significant delay in trying to understand what that is. And the other component is, should we, program this to let the things continue to happen that do not have exceptions, and then having some sort of dashboard to address what are the anomalies. And just having those types of insights, I feel like provides a lot of value, and it allows the human to know where to focus, right? That this is the specific thing that I need to look at because something happened, something has changed in the process or in the integration or with the, the lead system that we need to address, and it allows us the humans who have to make these things work to focus.
That's right. And in fact, what's kind of funny for us is we usually get the first phone call. We get it broke, and it's like, no, your data is messed up. It's not us, right? Or some other server was down, and or a database was down. It has nothing to do with your automation solution, but because we gave you the failure, you're like, help us. So we do help you, and we will point you back in the right direction. But having the right exit conditions from the jobs and the right pointers in your logs and all that kind of stuff is really important. So we'll tell you, hey, look, this SAP job failed at this time with this error code. Well, if the error code is generic and doesn't tell you anything, it's not very helpful, right? You need your ABAP programmers to be putting in good exit conditions that say, this data source was down, or this file wasn't available, or who knows what. Then you know exactly what's wrong, and you can go solve that problem in your flow. So yeah, it's super critical. And in fact, we're coming out with a new release in June that includes an AI component that can help predict your SLA failures in the future so that you can avoid SLA failures. And so anything that we can do to help you automate, determine how to solve a problem before it ever happens, or notify you because a problem has happened immediately, this helps you solve your problems. The MTTR, right? Mean time to repair, or get back up on your feet, right? You don't need to be down because it runs your business, but it's going to happen. So you have to be notified and you have to have the right people ready to come in and take action.
Yeah. And this is, so ZIA is also a managed services provider. And one of the things that we do is handle the end-to-end process of managing not only the applications, but the infrastructure, the access, network, patching, upgrades. And Enterprise Orchestrator has been, a tool that's invaluable to us. There's really just no way to keep all of these things taped together. When you look at the ability, for example, like if we're going to be making a change to Terraform and how we're calling infrastructure, because there's an application change, and now we need to integrate that with Helm, and then we need to also modify the Bootstrap configuration. And then, oh, by the way, how are we moving this between environments, from lower environments to production environments? You just have to, right? Like an enterprise orchestration tool
Right.
provides the workflow, and it's also just the visual workflow of it as well, right? Like that all of these things have to occur when you have a modification to one of them. So, what's the reverse or downstream effect, and also what's the upstream effect, and which things do we need to consider for those components?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have several service providers that are customers. We have many banks and insurance that are customers, right? Because they have mission critical stuff has to happen all the time, and they can't screw up or all of their customers get mad at them, right?
Yeah.
So this is underlying technology that just helps provide that stability that you need as a service provider or a bank or insurance to do your thing. And I think this leads us into a case study. We want to start telling some stories of some of those customers and bring this to life for you all. And in fact, the first one isn't a service provider or a bank or an insurance. They're a supermarket. So, any business, yeah, pretty big one. So Raley's in California, they've been an SAP user for a very long time. In fact, they had a mainframe a long time ago, and they were probably one of my customers long before they were an SAP customer, because I also manage another product that's a mainframe workload automation product. And so they moved with us from the mainframe to open systems, and now to the DevOps orchestration. And through that process, they were able to integrate even with Micro Focus, which is get off the mainframe, right? So they're getting off the mainframe, integrate with Micro Focus and SAP as they brought SAP on board, bring in our Informatica and Boomi, and make sure that now that we're doing DevOps, we've got Ansible and Kubernetes hooked up. And they've shared with me something before that I'm quoting now because I'm just having conversation, but they've told me before that our product is the lifeblood of their organization, which is a really, really big compliment, right? We also know their business doesn't work without SAP. But Enterprise Orchestrator connects the dots and makes sure that from SAP to Informatica to Boomi and over to Kubernetes, all of that stuff is connected and orchestrated so that they don't have to worry that things are flowing, right? Somewhere along their journey, though, Mobius was introduced because they realized, hey, with SAP, we're creating a lot of data. We need to archive performance problems, right? So, Jim, what was the Mobius side of their story?
Well, it's funny because most folks do. They find out they need to do some data archiving, but they want to automate in accounts payable, the vendor invoice processing. And typically, those vendor invoice automation projects pay for the data archiving project. And that was the case in their case, right? So they were looking for a solution that would do early archiving. So you're scanning batches, you're OCRing them, and then those scanned images are archived to Mobius, passed to SAP, matching is done, right? And for items that match, they're automatically processed. For those that don't, they're worked through SAP Business Workplace. So it's a very common scenario in the SAP world. Vendor invoice automation, everybody's got to pay the bills, and many large enterprises have thousands of vendors they have to pay, right? And getting that right and making sure that you're paying as little as possible, so you're taking advantage of discounts, and that this whole process is seamless, so that you're paying, you're getting the best discounts, you have happy vendors. I mean, I'm a supply chain guy, right? I want happy customers, I want happy vendors or suppliers, and I want happy employees. So for me, the Mobius solution helped them do that, right? Managing content that's being either inbound to SAP, like vendor invoices, or outbound, like billing invoices or statements. So yeah, Mobius handles the breadth of that for them. And
very cool. And we have a really neat partnership with them where they've worked with us on lots of innovation, and we're really happy partners with them. So
Yeah, you know, that's the just kind of on that topic, the one of my first forays, and I didn't know anything about enterprise orchestration, and it's one of those things that you kind of don't know about it until you realize you can't live without it.
right.
And so my first kind of job and career was working with ConAgra Foods and implementing SAP. And ConAgra, the name is a derivation of Consolidated Agriculture. And so they are a company that has gone out and just purchased, you know, I think they're up to probably 150 companies that they purchased, Hunt Wesson and Orville Redenbacher and Knott's Berry Farm. And so with all that comes a whole bunch of different financial systems and ERP systems. And it's not something you can just do overnight and turn it on and say, okay, Orville Redenbacher is now going to run in our SAP environment.
Right.
And so that was my first foray where they, you know, went out and this was late 90s and said, we need a system that helps us keep master data synchronized between all of these other financial systems. We have different batch jobs, etc. We have different consolidated invoicing that we need to do. And all of this stuff was done through an enterprise orchestration software, right? The ability to keep those business processes integrated, the master data that's related to it, even, you know, all the way down to bill of ladings, right? Like the things that go out to the docks to put on pallets that are going to go onto a truck and go out to a grocery store. So just you know, it's one of those things that I feel like you struggle with or can struggle with. And then once you do it, it's you kind of look in the mirror and say, why did I do that for so long? We should have with this. And yeah, I think this is
Stop suffering.
I was going to say, in the case of the vendor invoices, one of the big advantages of putting it in Mobius first is you can interrogate the data, right? You can make sure that this vendor invoice is what I'm expecting based on the purchase order, because you know that data, right? So before you even put stuff into SAP, that's another role in the Rocket Content Services stack. We have an audit and analytics capability that allows you to make sure the data coming from multiple systems, if it's going into your general ledger or from multiple systems to SAP and in a business warehouse, validating that the data correct and that you can be sure you can trust it is extremely important to our customers.
Yeah, definitely. And as we continue that kind of theme, there's reports and KPIs that people are trying to generate.
These are the tip of the iceberg, Anna. I mean, literally, we had thousands of custom queries, custom reports. Some of them were too large to let individuals run on a daily basis, so they were scheduled, right? There were scheduled jobs. And then what really is great about Mobius is unique in that it's able to partition and section these very large reports into sections that are only accessible to those who have those access rights. So from an end user perspective, they can get to content from within SAP, and they can get to the same content outside of SAP using our viewing clients, and the same authorization they have in SAP is reflected accessing the content in Mobius. So if I can't see it in SAP, I won't be able to see it in Mobius. And if the report is a payroll report for 100,000 people, I can only see my payroll stub, right? So for me, the day-to-day reports and the high volume and the need to have them is real, right? And both operationally and for those KPIs, right? I need to know how are we doing on shipments, on deliveries? How many back orders do we have? What does my aged receivables look like? So there's so many reports that are extremely meaningful to folks that, like I said before, when you run them, you want a snapshot in time, because if I regenerate those, chances are the data won't be the same. So it is important to have snapshots in time.
Right. And as you talk, Jim, I'm thinking about how there's such a nice synergy between Enterprise Orchestrator and Mobius, because, and we have a bunch of customers that have both products, right? Because Enterprise Orchestrator is running all of these reports and more, right? Because there's so many custom reports that get created and generating the information, and then Mobius is having to take it and parse it and make permissions and archive it, and all of the things.
And maybe redact sensitive information, right? That's the other thing Mobius can do. And it's encrypted at rest or in flight. It does all those. Yeah.
Right. So you think about the creation side. I think I'm in the front of the story and he's the back of the story, right? When we have this conversation. But there's also then on the other side of the back of the story, when we do some of that archiving, Enterprise Orchestrator can get involved again, moving files around, moving things into databases. It's doing the tasks that are repetitive to take care of business, right? And so orchestration happens from end to end, and it's almost more circular than that. It's not just a start and an end, but comes right back. And it makes me think of, because it's part of the DevOps cycle, it's an infinity loop, right? Automation is an infinity loop in that way too, because well, tomorrow I'm going to run the same report, or I'm going to be asked to run another report, and we're going to create more of a mess, and we're going to need Mobius to clean it up, right? So
And that's why Mobius is an infinity.
yeah, all right. I love that we can help our customers in this area, and it's a very rich space for us to partner with our customers and help them make sure that they're successful. I think you have a couple of really neat stories about Mobius that we wanted to try and cover.
Sure. This is one going back to when I first joined Mobius. One of the accounts they had was a mainframe customer, and they were going to SAP, and they had a lot of trust in the solution they had with Mobius. But there was the 800-pound gorilla in this space. At the time was Ixos, which was later acquired by OpenText, but they owned 10% of Ixos at the time. And in a head-to-head competition, they selected our solution over theirs as the superior solution. And they have more than SAP needs, right? So SAP accounts for, I'd say, about 40% of that 120 terabytes. They also have dozens of B2B systems generating tons of documents and data. And with Mobius, they have a single pane of glass. The end users in their community, they don't even use our viewing client. They use our REST API to get to search queries that get them to the information they need, regardless of where it came from, SAP, other non-SAP sources, securely and easily. And it's highly valued for them.
Cool.
And then we also have integration with other systems, right? We support Microsoft SharePoint. Actually, Mobius supports also all the Microsoft Office. So viewing a Microsoft spreadsheet or PowerPoint inside of SAP, it's a link. You click on it, it opens our viewing client, and you'll be viewing it just like you were in those Microsoft applications. And in the case of SharePoint, in this case, it's a credit cooperative in Italy. At the end of business close every day, everything gets archived, indexed and archived to Mobius, and then shared via SharePoint with over 400 banks. And those banks interact with the content, the data, and workflows, and everything is automatically synced behind the scenes back to the SAP system that generated all the information to begin with. It's helped streamline their processes beyond what they thought was possible. And so for me, having that, yes, we have SAP, but we also have SharePoint. It's a very comfortable way to seamlessly index, archive, and share information.
Right.
Securely.
Securely. Let's remember.
Extremely important to banks.
Yes, yes. All the time we're paying attention to the security things that we do. So, I mean, each of these stories is the same, but totally unique, right? They have a special situation that's going on with their company. They want to do it a specific way, and we work with them to get that done. And so I think that's, as we try to start to wind down the conversation, I do want to highlight for everybody that Rocket has several solutions, and Jim's referred to Audit and Analytics and Mobius, and I have Enterprise Orchestrator, right? It doesn't matter what the products are specifically. What matters for you is your challenges. Do you need to archive data? Do you need to extend workflow and RPA? Do you need to do advanced governance? Can we help you with workload automation? This is your challenges for us to meet you where you are. Right.
And I didn't even mention one of them, Anna, which was Cypress, which is an SAP certified BCXOM for output management. We literally monitor the print devices that are in the SAP ecosystem, bidirectional polling to ensure that print actually happens when it's supposed to, and that you can take action on it when it doesn't. So we actually control even the stock and the paper trays in those print devices. So yes, Rocket has a lot of solutions that add significant value to the SAP space. And I'm very excited that we're modernizing some of those Cypress capabilities so that later this year we'll have a new document process capability that works with SAP, mainframe, any source for output, and then allows you to orchestrate the creation of new highly formatted documents and then deliver them and also govern them right through their life cycle. So I'm very excited about that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I think that's been incredibly notable for me, working with Rocket over the past 2 or 3 years, and again, having spent 25 years around enterprise content management, data management, all of these things, orchestration is, and I'll go out on a limb here a little bit and say this type of product stack is not that incredibly unique to Rocket. There's other companies that can make this type of claim. But one of the things that stood out to me and I think is incredibly unique to Rocket is that these are proven technologies, and Rocket has one of the most powerful, performant, and fastest engines on the planet. This is a tried and true Clydesdale. And so, I've worked in for other software vendors, etc., and everybody talks about all of these things that you can do and all of these great features they have. And at the end of the day, if you throw several terabytes of data at something and it can't process it or it starts to choke, it's useless. And so, it's just an important thing to note. I've worked with Rocket on one of the largest banks in the world where we have, hundreds of terabytes of data, and we have some of the most performant, fastest solutions built on top of this, and it can serve it with no problem. And so I just think that that's, an important thing to note is as well, because like I said, other companies sure have these things too. The question is, who are their customers? How much data have they thrown at it, and can they perform, those tasks? And that's something that's been fantastic with Rocket.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeremy. That was really nice to hear. We pride ourselves on really working to be the best in everywhere that we invest our time and our resources, but also in that human connection and the partnership with those customers. So in our partnership with Zia too, right? Finding the right partners to meet our customers where they are and help them get where they're going, and not just say, oh, here's a product, go off and do your thing, right? We're not selling product exactly. We are selling products that help you do what you need to do and do it well, right? And so thank you. That's great feedback, Jeremy.
Sure.
I'm going to take the recording and play it for our leadership.
Excellent.
You got petabytes? No problem.
Go. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, I do want to wrap this up by bringing you back to Enterprise Orchestrator for a minute and think back outside of SAP for a minute and content management, which is a big part of your business. But there are other part of your business, right? There's people who are doing development in open systems. There might be people working on the mainframe still in your world. There are products and processes happening all over your business that really it's what I have a challenge with talking with some of my customers is I'll talk to an IT person, but that's not the same person who's in charge of DevOps, or not the same person who's in charge of mainframe, or even this person who's in charge of making sure that the customer facing website is fully updated and performant and all that kind of stuff. And so because of the silos that happen across a company and different responsibility levels, people don't think this is a tool that can help me across my entire business. And it is the kind of tool that can help you across your entire business because you have different workflows. One of the terms that's come to be more in the vernacular recently is value streams. As a business, you have value streams where whether you're building software or you're servicing a customer or you're delivering a new piece of hardware, you are as a business creating value. And there's something that has to happen, or many thousands of things that have to happen before you can deliver that value. And that's why there's so many value streams at your company, and you would automate them as best you can. And Enterprise Orchestrator can help you with that. So before I leave you and pass it back to Jeremy, Rocket's heart is to help you modernize without disruption. Whatever your journey is, whether you're on-prem, you're all the way in the cloud, or you're somewhere in between, like most of our customers, that we meet you where you are and help you get where you're going with empathy, humanity, trust, and love. For real, we're partners, and our customers will tell you that we're different in that way. And we want to be partners with you too. So, Jeremy, I think back to you.
That's great. Yeah, and just to extend on that modernization piece and really that line about without disruption, I think that's really important as well. Again, I've been involved with customer implementations where the very technology that we were using to try to solve a problem became a problem, meaning like it could not handle the number of transactions that we were throwing at it. It could not handle the volume of data that we were throwing at it, or the reporting requirements that we were throwing at it. And so it's just back to the performance and Rocket's technology stack being proven, tried, true products on the market that can handle high volumes and can solve these problems. That's just really important. I think, there's a difference between feature function, and if you take two pieces of software and say, what's the real delta with them versus when you put them in the real world, can they actually perform under that type of stress? And so, again, just Rocket's technology stack, it's something that they've spent time curating and pulling together some of the best of breed technologies that are really focused on high performance. And so this is, why it's been a good fit for Zia. A lot of our customers are customers that face really significant issues with data management and data performance, and they don't want to buy a technology that causes more problems. And so this is, it's a great stack here. And yeah, I really appreciate Anna, you and Jim joining in here today and helping kind of walk through some of the benefits here and some of the customer use cases. And yeah, so I really appreciate your time today. And Shelly, I'll pass it back to you. I wasn't sure, I don't have access to the control panel here. I wasn't sure if we had some customer questions come in, or sorry, some attendee questions come in. And so yeah, I'll pass it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, Anna, Jim, and Jeremy, for sharing your vast experience and knowledge, customer stories. It's really valuable information. So yeah, let's take a quick look. It looks like we have a few questions. The first question is, how many SAP environments can this automation product support?
Oh, okay. Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know the max value. I do have a customer right now that's running over 50 different SAP environments. We've got customers running on a huge range of different SAP environments. And so what I can tell you is we haven't hit a limit yet, and we don't have any complaints of performance problems or being able to get the connections out. And it's a valid question, because when you're making the connection from a single system out to a bunch of different systems, are you bogging down that main server and now you're running out of scope? But the way we're architected, it's object oriented, and we're distributing the workload so that it's not all just happening from our server, but from different agents that are running on different machines. So you can spread the workload and then still connect remotely into SAP and get done what you need to get done.
And I won't ask for names, but that sounds like Conagra.
It's not
Certainly a big company. Yeah. Okay, here's another question. We are using Redwood to automate SAP today. Could this product replace Redwood?
Yes, absolutely, it could. And in fact, Redwood has been the approved SAP scheduling tool for a long time, but there is some shift coming in the market, and it's actually a super highly competitive market, and I would love to replace Redwood at your site. So yes, I have several customers I've replaced Redwood at, and they're happy because not only did we take over everything it was doing for SAP, but it's fully integrated into their whole ecosystem and doing what they needed to do.
Awesome. Thank you. Here's another question. We have thousands of SAP jobs already defined inside of SAP. To adapt your product, would we have to export all these job definitions?
Oh my goodness, no. that would be bad news, right? So what you have to do is only connect to them. right? So we would help you figure out the best plan to get there. But there's nothing you have to rewrite. There's nothing you have to change. We have areas that you can set up the variants. We can trigger SAP events. So everything is going to connect into your SAP system and orchestrate what you've already invested so much in.
Great. And then the last question I see here is, we're in the process of moving to HANA. Can Rocket and Zia provide capabilities for HANA automation and archiving?
Well, that is a good question. And actually, if we could pop back to the webinar, the upcoming webinars or upcoming events, yeah. So Jim and I are putting together a webinar currently on how to leverage the Zia SAP archiving appliance, which is powered by Rocket's SAP Archive. And so I think we've got that coming up sometime in May. So absolutely, we have that solution fully developed. That's also based on a 25-year-old proven technology, right? It's been certified by SAP for both ECC as well as S/4HANA. And maybe, what Jim and I can do is also just cover a little bit more specifics during that webinar around some of the enterprise automation and orchestration during that presentation as well. But yeah, absolutely, that capability is there, and we do plan on having a webinar coming up here in May. The other thing is we're going to be at Sapphire. So for all of the folks who are here, Jim and I are going to be at Sapphire. Shelly's going to be at Sapphire coming up here in June. So we would love to, get on your calendars and have a chance to grab a coffee or drink together and talk about some of the capabilities that we have coming up. And then I think Anna, Rocket's also, I'm not familiar with what
yeah. So if you look at the Rocket event page, you'll see that we have Envision 24 coming up in May, where our CEO and our presidents will be there. So it's an executive meet and greet and get together in New York City and talking about the future and what's coming for your environments, and really to get inside the heads of our executives. It's a really cool event.
Awesome. Very good.
Great.
That was a long-winded answer, Shelly, but any more questions there?
No, I think that's it. And we're just about out of time for today. So thank you again for sharing all of your knowledge and experience. We have quite the good team here to answer any other questions that you might have. Feel free to reach out to us. We will be sharing the recording with you in the next day or two. And so look out for that so you can rewatch, see if there's anything else that comes up for you. And on that, I will just say goodbye and thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you again at the next webinar that we host.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.